is the Jess Cagle Show with Julia Cunningham.
Somebody, anybody find me?
Listen to this.
Somebody to love.
I mean, so good. He has such an amazing voice. Our next guest, we're super excited to have him here because he's never been on the show before.
I know.
For whatever reason.
Stop avoiding us.
Anyway, so much, I mean, Cinderella, which you just heard a little bit from, Purple Hearts, Red, White, and Royal Blue. He is in my new favorite TV series, Mary and George. So excited to have him here, Nicholas Galitzine. Welcome.
Oh my God, what an introduction. Thank you so much for that.
Wow, we're super excited. I love the music side of you. I think most people obviously know you from the movies and stuff, but the music side, and you also write your own music.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's I had to take such a backseat role in the last couple of years because it's been quite busy for me. I did 4 projects back to back, but no, it was very lucky actually. You know, did a project recently with Anne Hathaway that involved quite a bit of singing, and so that was kind of a nice fusion of both worlds.
We're going to get to Mary and George in a minute, but by the way, the idea of you, I mean, based on this rom-com with you and Anne Hathaway, and I've seen it already.
Same.
It comes out May 2nd, I believe. But without spoiling anything, you do a song at the end of the movie that is fantastic.
Although I would say all the songs, genuinely.
I mean, all the songs. Yeah. But I mean, I love that one at the end of the movie.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you pointed out all the music. Obviously, you know, a lot of it was written to appeal to the fans of boy bands as well. So there are some people who will connect more with that stuff, and there will be certain people who connect more with the latter stuff as well.
Normally, I connect with boy band stuff, but I like the song of the more, you know, mature. Anyway, let's talk about Mary and George, which is such a fantastic. I love the true story behind this story. So you play this guy, his George Villiers, a real person, and I'll let you sort of set up who he is because I know you've been doing this.
Yeah, he's the son of Mary Villiers, the second son due to inherit nothing. Their family is on the verge of potential oblivion, and Mary sees potential in her son and sends him off to France to become this Renaissance man. And when he returns with these skills, you know, knowing how to ride horses, speaks French, dances, she sees potential for him to seduce the king and essentially raise their family into power and wealth.
A true story, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Based on a true story.
It's wild. Well, and I love, like, the opening is you're born, it's 1592, and you're dropped. And Julianne Moore, by the way, who's playing your mother, is like, it's fine. Like, doesn't even cut the cord. She's like, I mean...
Yeah, she's a bit cynical at that point in her life. She doesn't know the potential wealth I will accrue for her later down the line. But it's amazing. I mean, life truly can be stranger than fiction sometimes. And you know, most of what we include in the show is written about and is, you know, surmised to be true.
Yeah, it's based on this book by Benjamin Woolley called The King's Assassin, which is really about the affair between James I of England and this guy George Villiers, who rose to incredible heights and power within the court of King James. But the series really focuses a lot on the relationship between George and his mother, Mary, who's played by Julianne Moore. And that must have been... Did you know Julianne Moore before you started?
No, I mean, I guess I'd heard of her before, you know. I think she's going to have a promising career ahead of her.
You're like, who's this person playing my mom?
Yeah, who is this person? No, I mean, I didn't know her, didn't have any overlap with her, but I mean, she was on my bucket list, and funnily enough, a day before I got offered the job, I was watching a movie of hers and was just thinking, wow, I'd love to work with this person.
Ooh, which movie?
I know, which movie were you watching?
Still Alice, which is a bit... it's kind of... Bearing in mind, I was shooting The Idea of You at the time and had very little time off, so very bizarre self-care to watch that movie, but...
I was going to say, that's a hardcore...
Won the Academy Award for it, though.
Yeah.
It's a little insight into my masochistic tastes, I guess.
Well, one thing that I think is interesting about the two of you also is like and I've only seen the first couple of episodes, but the dynamic of the power exchange, because really Mary looks at you as sort of like a ticket for her in a way, and she says, like if I looked like you, I would rule the planet, and is like really supercharged by that she can use her son to esteem for herself. But then, we also see the son also realizing, oh wow, I look like this, I can rule the world, and how like that dynamic changes. And will you talk a little bit about like what we'll see over the course of their relationship?
Yeah, and I think, that sort of transformation very much goes for the genre of the show as well. I think when we first start the show, it's quite bouncy, it's very funny, and, by the end, we're sitting in a very different genre. I think, at first he's just desperately searching for the approval of his mother. He's searching for love, and she's coarse, naturally, years of not having her own autonomy, and, once George becomes a part of the royal court and sees the power that he has and what power he can have, his ability to dominate and seduce, he maybe thinks that he'd be better off doing it alone as opposed to, this partnership with his mother.
And how much research, because George Villiers, obviously it's a TV show, and there are, and again, like you said, it kind of goes between genres. It's not like an out and out satire, although very, very funny at times. But since it is rooted in fact, how much research did you have on George Villiers and trying to figure out, was he totally driven by his mother? Was he bisexual? I think the show sort of leads you to believe he must have been bisexual, but we don't really know.
Well, I think, the letters that were found sort of between him and King James suggest that he was fluid, and in a lot of ways that was why he was able to cross as many thresholds as he did. I mean, there were things even within the show. Famously, people believe that he seduced the Queen of France as well. There were things that we couldn't even really include in the show because his exploits were so vast over so many years. The tricky thing is when it comes to Mary, there's a lot less written about her, and like many women in that time, she was relegated to the sidelines and relegated in the history books as well. But what we do know is that she was buried next to many kings, and that kind of signified her importance. And so it's a wonderful show where we do claim a lot of the history. As you mentioned, Ben Woolley's book was a great resource for us, but at the same time, in situations like this, you do treat the script as Bible, and there was just a wealth of fun and opportunity in those scripts written by D.C. Moore, who's a very talented writer. So a blending of the two, I'd say.
Well, one thing that's sort of interesting about it, just because we're here in the U.S. sort of often obsessed with the dynamic in the royal family, even with Prince William and Harry, and deeming himself the spare and calling his book that. And it's, George is presented to us as the spare, but then eclipses the heir, right? I mean, we see that sort of early on. And do we know a lot about the siblings and the dynamic, or was that just deemed like he was beautiful, so he was important, and we're putting our weight into him?
Well, it's funny, and I think, topically, there's still an alignment in terms of how much importance we place on beauty. It often superseding natural lineage of power, and there's less sort of written about the siblings, but we know that George's exploits very much helped prop up his siblings. Kit, his younger brother, was written about, but again, a lot less is known, and I think again that these are things that we played around with script a lot in to create, four siblings that felt very distinct as well.
Did you ever think back like, wow, if this had been 1592, Harry probably would have become king at this point?
I would say there's a stark difference between the Harry, but maybe.
You're listening to the Jess Cagle Show with Julia Cunningham, here with Nicholas Galitzine, who, in addition to The Idea of You, which is coming out in May, and everybody's super excited about this, there is my new favorite TV show, Mary and George, which is Nicholas Galitzine and Julianne Moore as this couple from the 17th century in England. Not a couple, she's his mother. And
although might as well be in weird ways,
well,
you know what I mean? Like,
there is something bizarre about your mum pimping you out to people, but
exactly, it's a true story where this mother pimped her beautiful young son out and made him go seduce the King of England, King James I. I saw the Guardian. I called it a 17th century. It's a great compliment by the Guardian. A 17th century raunch fest. Poisonings by Prune, lesbian affairs, murders, orgies, a family so monstrous they make the Borgias look like the Waltons. It is magnificent.
Yes.
So it's definitely it's outrageous, but also so rooted in history, which is what I was so drawn to about it.
Yeah. Well, and you see how like all of the characters think they're justified, which I think makes it really interesting. Even Julianne Moore, who is like left nothing, she must move forward with her family, sees her son as a cash cow. Parents do that today. You know what I mean? In a way.
I mean, she's totally living.
She's a momager
through him. A lot of people have said she's the original momager. And it gets to a point with George where he feels that he's been milked for every drop, and that maybe marriage is the wrong word to use, but that partnership it doesn't benefit him anymore.
Is it fun or weird or what for you as a straight man to be? You are like an icon for the gay community, especially for young gay people, because of Red, White, and Royal Blue, but also Handsome Devil. Like you have taken on not just gay characters or fluid characters, but these men who are incredibly fascinating characters that happen to be these, big hits that people are really drawn to.
I feel so overwhelmingly proud of the resonance I feel like I've been able to have, and so touched by conversations I've had with people from the queer community, and first and foremost I love interesting textured characters, and I'm so glad you mentioned those three young men, because I feel like I have a lot of care for my characters, and I hope that is evident in the work that I do, and I feel very 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 powerful with their backing behind me, so just very grateful.
But it's also an amount of pressure, because I don't agree with this, but there are people that say no, only queer people should play queer characters, and there's that whole debate going on. But I would think that because of that, it sort of adds to not only taking care of these characters and doing it in the most conscientious way, but also the type of characters that you choose to play. And if you look at these three that I just mentioned, those are really good characters.
Oh, totally. And I feel so lucky to have been able to play those young men. I mean, you look at Connor Masters from Handsome Devil and Prince Henry from Red, White, and Royal Blue. I mean, these are two young men completely trapped by circumstance and feel a sense of deep claustrophobia on their lives. They can't be who they are. And with George, it's the opposite in a lot of ways. Like it is his power. It is how he dominates people. It is how he accrues wealth for his family. And so, they were just all really rich on the page, and I feel very lucky that I've been able to play them.
One cool thing is that we had interviewed Julianne Moore fairly recently for May, December, and she was like, so just kind of, so good. Julianne Mooring it up, and we were, talking to her, and like
peak Julianne Moore that day. And
she said we were talking to her after, and she was like, said to Jess, she was like, "What have you been watching recently?" And I was like, "Oh my God, a mere mortal just hanging out, asking us what we've been watching, what we're up to, that kind of thing." And I am curious, like on a tense set like Mary and George, then she like come sit down with me, craft services, and let's talk about rom-coms, or like what's Julianne Moore energy filming a Mary and George?
She's very light, and look, I think that when you are playing with heavy subject matter, as we kind of do more towards the end of the show, you know, it oftentimes does not serve you to stay in this kind of dark state all day. You know, to keep the energy, you have to be light and keep it fun. And I mean, from day one, you know, right before a take, she's dancing and singing and doing a little jig, and you know, everyone else around her gets sucked into that as well. I think I learned an immense amount from her, just watching how she holds herself, a commitment to her craft, her preparation, but also, you know, I truly believe the fish rots from the head. And if you're number one on the call sheet and you bring an oppressive nature to the set, I think it just affects everyone. And Julie is the opposite to oppressive.
Was Camila Cabello the most oppressive if you had to rank them?
She's a terrible human being.
By the way,
I don't know if you've met her before, but she's a joy, and she's one of my close friends.
A couple of years ago, you came out with I think this was your first single, a song called "Comfort." Can we hear just a little bit of that?
I need comfort, but I hate being comfortable. I wonder why I hate getting what I want is torture, but I can't seem to shake it off. Shake it off, shake it off. If I could retrace my footsteps to see where I lost my direction.
I mean, so good. I mean, so you said that your music has kind of taken a back seat the last couple of years, but you're still working on it, I assume, mulling things in your head at least.
God, you guys surprised me. That made me blush. I guess I'm so used to just being an actor that, considering myself a musician, I don't feel like I've done enough to sort of own that title. But I like I said, work with some really incredible people who have kind of taken me under their wing. And what I will say is in the next year or so, there will be more music from me coming out, and it kind of nourishes a very different part of myself, which is what I love. You know, being able to wear many different hats and be a multi-hyphenate is attractive to me.
Well, one thing that was sort of like based on your bios and things, it was always like he was a rugby player, he played football, and he was very athletic, and then had an injury and became an actor. And I thought, is this one of those Barbra Streisand from her memoir moments where she didn't realize she was an amazing singer and then finally sang and turned around and everyone was crying? Was that your start where you're like...
Isn't that so funny? That like, you cannot imagine Barbra Streisand thinking...
Had no idea she didn't know. She was like an angelic voice.
Yeah, she was like 18 or 19 before she realized...
She didn't realize, and I imagine you like in the locker room... and you're singing, and then you turn around and all the rugby
High School
players
Musical.
are... No, it is, I think. I think that's what happened.
Are you rewriting my own history now?
I'm rewriting your bio.
In front of you.
Maybe I was singing a cappella in the locker room.
Oh my God, I knew it.
Look back at No, the truth is, I was very privileged to go to school that had a bunch of instruments, you know, sitting in a room that, you know, when I started to fall out of love with sport and the community, the sporting community in my school, I went in there and I picked up a guitar and I taught myself how to play, and then sort of slowly, I developed an interest in it. And then acting kind of came really quickly after that. So it kind of went from having never considered myself to be a creative to then picking up music, picking up acting within a short space of time.
So I feel like Julia really nailed it.
So I nailed it.
Yeah, you did. You nailed it.
Nicholas Galitzine, I know you have better things to do. Thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on Mary and George. It is so the idea of you. We talked about that. It's going to be out May 2nd. I don't think we said Mary and George premieres on Stars on April 5th, and it's really so fun and so fascinating.
So good.
Nicholas, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it. My first radio ever.
Really? Really? How is that possible?
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, well, please do it again. You're welcome anytime.
I will.
Julia Cunningham and I will be back right after this.
I'm all on my own. I get down on my knees and I start to pray.
Welcome to the Spotlight on Sirius XM Stars 109. I'm Jessica Shaw, so thrilled to be joined by Nicholas Galitzine, who has 8 million things coming up. Oh my goodness, he's going to be everywhere these next months. Mary and George on Stars on April 5th, and The Idea of You on Prime Video on May 2nd. My eyes are still swollen from watching that one, from crying so much. Hi, Nicholas.
Hello. I'm so sorry we reduced you to tears.
Yes, you absolutely did. It's your fault. They're both wonderful. Both of these projects. In Mary and George, a truly just dysfunctional family.
What are you talking about? There's nothing dysfunctional about them.
Julianne Moore plays your mom, and she is basically like, you know what? You got to go sleep with a king, because that's like, things aren't going well for us as a family. How much did you know about that story going into the project, and was it like, oh, this is delicious?
That was just like being with Julianne Moore in the room. I saw your performance was exactly, I think those were the lines actually from the show itself.
She's so showy. She's just like, I have an Oscar, and I'm like, who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Yeah. Come on. It was, wait, the question was how did I come to project?
Yes. When you first read this, are you like, oh, this is delicious, I'm digging in?
Yeah, I mean, really, I think, Julie and I have both spoken about this. We didn't know anything about this relatively short period of history. It's 20 years, the Jacobean era, and the things that, particularly this young man accomplished within such a short period of time, are bizarre and crazy. The amount of wealth and power he accrued, and it was just a joy to get a script with such a wonderfully textured character, and a sort of a conniving duo of mother and son.
Now, did you, when you auditioned to play this, to play George, did you do a chemistry read with Julianne? Because I know you did with Anne Hathaway, and you've spoken about that.
No, I didn't actually, because I was shooting The Idea of You. I remember I read for Mary and George the one day I was in London on my birthday before going off to shoot The Idea of You. And then a month went by, and I was watching actually Still Alice, and was thinking, wow, Julianne Moore is incredible, I'd love to work with her one day. And then I got a call from my agents the next day saying, Oliver Hermanus, the director of the show, wants to meet with you. And it was, an amazing conversation we had, and he just offered it to me off the back of that. And so, my first experience of Julie was just, being on set with her, which is, incredibly bizarre, but wonderful.
Don't you think it's dangerous to go out for a big audition on your birthday?
I just think it's wrong in general. Like, that is my day, and I was forced to work. Well, I mean, do you think it's dangerous because if you don't get it, it just tarnishes the day? Honestly, I have had so many bad auditions that I'm impervious to it now. It does nothing to me.
What is your single worst audition story?
Well, I've spoken about the bad Tarzan audition, where I had to do some improv pretending to be young Tarzan, but they made me be an ape protecting an orange, and I didn't go all the way, and it was just me kind of like cowering and whimpering in a corner.
That's so intro to acting.
Yeah,
I love that.
No words can explain how uncomfortable it was for all of us.
Yeah.
I felt like I should have apologized to the casting team when leaving. I am sorry. I'm still sorry. But there have been too many bad auditions to count, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Could you see the casting people like laughing at you during that?
No, they were so respectful. My theory is that they saw a lot of really uncomfortable auditions, because it's such a bizarre thing to ask someone to do, and there is no preparation for that. But it did teach me a very valuable lesson of you got to go all out. If you don't go all in, then you'll end up embarrassed. Well,
your audition must have been brilliant for The Idea of You, because you and Anne Hathaway are so perfect together. You're perfect separately, and you're perfect together. So was that one that you thought, oh, this is mine. This one's mine to play?
It's so funny because, again, I mean, actually, not because of that Tarzan audition, but I remember going walking up to that audition that day and thinking like, I just want to leave everything in that room. I'm not gonna be intimidated. I'm not gonna be overwhelmed. And I think I just went in with a really positive energy. And I was very lucky that Annie and I have a natural simpatico, and it's just so responsive to what I was doing. And it, I left feeling amazing. But you never know in these things. There have been roles which were guaranteed to be mine, and you miss out on them. And so my sense of validation came from the fact that I knew that I couldn't do anything else, and I had a really great time. And then I was just lucky they called me the next day and offered it to me.
The very next day?
Yeah, they liked me, I guess.
Get it?
Know.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
What did you do? You play like a singer in a boy band.
Yeah.
And you meet Anne Hathaway's character at Coachella. What did you do to kind of figure out how to move on stage? Sometimes they're so like, even the way you move your shoulders and back, like it's all just so spot on.
I mean, the version of the boy band that I was channeling was the guy who is forced to dance, who is not that good at dancing, which actually works really well for me, considering the rest of my band are professional dancers, which is terrifying. But I asked them very thoughtfully, I said, please just be as bad as you can be, so I look very, very good. But it was just honestly getting a sense of camaraderie. Mm-hmm. I think, you oftentimes see these boy bands together and there's such a closeness there. And we were all staying in the same hotel, and we'd come over for game night and just hang out all day with each other. And I mean, I made 4 really close friends, which is such a gift.
What was the game of choice?
Oh, so we played Quiplash, which I don't know if you've played that before.
No.
It's like a prompt game where I actually really struggle to describe this game. I think like anyone, but like 2 people have to anonymously submit prompts, and then the rest of the people on their phones, they vote for which is funnier.
Oh.
So there was a lot of,
Did you win? Most
I
importantly, did you win?
I won sometimes, yeah. And we did Mario Kart as well, which I definitely did win.
Yeah,
I wiped the floor with them.
Good.
Yeah.
Did you feel you sing, you know how to sing, obviously. you have, in several projects at this point. Did you ever think about, you know what, I'm going to be a recording star, like if this acting thing doesn't go well?
It's something that I've flirted with for a while. I think, especially in the last few years, I've been very lucky that acting has taken up all of my time. I think there's just an immense amount of work that goes into being a musician. And, it's hard. I mean, being a recording artist is one thing, but, being a performer as well. I mean, we did these Coachella scenes in front of, about 500 extras, which is a lot, but, compared to, these actual audiences of 60,000 or whatever is nothing. And still, I mean, it was such a joy, nerve-wracking, fulfilled a lot of childhood dreams. I think we all did, doing that. But, it's such a different beast to being an actor,
I have to imagine, because when you're acting, on some level, it's like, it's very intimate. I mean, there are people on set, there's, the cast and the crew and whatever, but it does feel a little bit, I don't know, just more cozy.
Well, yeah, you're ignoring the presence of other people in the room as well, whereas as a musician, you're embracing other people's presence, which is very different.
So the Coachella scenes, even with 500 people there, what was that like? Were you like, oh my God, 500 people watching me?
Yeah, the first take, I was just completely breaking it. And then the second take, I was, still a little bit. And then the third, we just started really getting into it and interacting with the audience. And there was a sort of a section where I have to kind of jump down and I'm getting my shirt pulled out and everything. And it was very realistic. I had so much fun doing it, honestly. I think it very much solidified a want to do more of that in my own capacity, which is cool.
Yeah. You and Anne have a dance number. You have a dance hall days dance number. First of all, did you know that song going into it? Because I feel like you were probably born after it came out.
I was born after. The only reason I knew going into it is because it was one of the sort of improvised dance scenes that we did in the chemistry test. One of the songs they brought was Dance All Day. So I knew that going into it. But I think it perfectly encapsulates the sort of joy of that scene, the sort of shared calmness with each other and fun. I mean, I love that scene so much. I think it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
I think so too. Yeah. And you're holding like chicken fingers.
Chicken things, yeah, there's a fry that's a cigarette, yes. And then it's just food goes flying, and because it's both embracing each other's oddities, but also there is a sexiness to it as well that I really, really love. Yeah. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Did they have a choreographer sort of tell you what to do, or was it like you guys already auditioned on this kind of dance improvising?
I mean, yeah, there was like various things sort of suggested, but it was very much improvised, you know, and yeah, I came up with the food prop idea, and it's just like, again, getting the balance between the silliness and the sexiness, and I think that's actually kind of a good way to pitch the movie. It can be both silly and sexy and sad, lots of S's, but yeah, I adore that scene.
Oh, yeah. So both of these projects, Mary and George, and The Idea of You, are based on books. Are you someone who, when you're thinking about doing a project, do you read the book first, or do you want to just say, like, no, I need to find my own version of who this character is?
Yeah, I mean, actually, you know, in terms of the historical text for Mary and George, I did read that beforehand. Most of the time, if it's sort of fictional, I'll usually read after, because I just think sometimes it's you don't want to get pulled into. You want fan service, but I think also you trust your director to help steer that. You really want a sense of self and independence, I think, in a lot of ways. And, you know, everyone's different when it comes to that. Some people love to read the book multiple times, and I think different projects call for different techniques, you know. Yeah, and yet, I mean, Mary and George historical. With The Idea of You, when people like love a book and endings change, how do you prepare yourself theoretically for things? God, I mean, I don't know if you can prepare yourself for these things. I mean, you know, I tend to just try and enjoy the process as much as possible, and then, you know, it becomes something else. It's kind of almost not your project anymore, and then, you know, you come back to it a year later and you see the joy that something like The Idea of You brought to you know, all the people who came and saw the movie in South by Southwest, which, you know, that was just a really humbling experience. I know Annie and I were both really touched by all the people who showed up for us.
Tell me about that. I mean, humbling how?
It's just, look, I mean, I still don't feel like I should be here. Like, I feel like I got very lucky early in my career, and I think it's kind of led to just a lot of gratitude around the projects that I've done, and I can't quite believe I get to work with, you know, Anne Hathaway and Julianne Moore, and so, you know, when that amount of people show up to say hi, and you know, even the people who got into the screening, you know, I mean, they were laughing, there was audible gasps, there were tears and everything, and that's what you want, you know, from the movies. You want resonance, you want reaction, and yeah, we were just very floored by the whole experience.
I'm not surprised, and I think when it comes out, it'll be sort of nonstop. Speaking of crying, I love Anne Hathaway being able to cry. Does she? Every take you took, I'm guessing she could cry just immediately. I mean, she's unreal. She's really has an access to her emotions like I've not really seen before, and you know, it's really draining. I'm not under any false impression that I'm very lucky to do the job that I do, but, you know, oftentimes it's 4 a.m. in the morning and you're being asked to cry, and you're exhausted, and you've been shooting for 7 weeks already, and her professionalism is truly something to behold. I was completely in awe of working with her. What makes you cringe more when you find out, like, what's on the docket for the day? Sex scene or dance scene?
Dance scene, 100%. I think at this point I'm fairly well versed in the former, between Mary and George, Idea of You, other projects, you know. And there's something very empowering about taking all of your clothes off in front of a fully clothed crew who have always, actually, in my experience, have been very respectful and wonderful intimacy coordinators as well. But yeah, dancing is less in my wheelhouse, I'd say.
Well, you did great.
Oh,
I mean, at both.
you.
Like,
thank you. Yeah, the other scenes, not so much.
How do you decide? I mean, I love how your career is just kind of, I mean, from the beginning, you just chose great projects and...
Look, I think definitely in the last few years, I feel a lot more agency. I feel like I'm starting to do artistry that I'm much more invested in. I that is not to admonish my other projects, because I think that, you know, everything has served the purpose. You know, it's all about getting to the next project and elevating. And, you know, I did some great indie films, and I did some films that were more commercial. And I think...
Don't you dare say anything bad about Bottoms, because I love...
Oh, I mean, well, no, that very much consists of the sort of recent great choices. Because I remember getting that script, and I you know, Jeff is such a small role, but I was like, you have to do this project. It's a cult classic. Emma's incredible, Rachel and Io, and I felt very lucky that they let me be a part of that movie. And I can say it's amazing because I am such a small part. I mean, the women in that, I mean, top to bottom. This is a brilliant movie.
Top to bottoms, you mean? I went there.
How dare you?
Yeah,
how dare you?
I did. Were you sad that Io and Kaya didn't ask you to get a matching tattoo with them?
They have a sort of a kindredness with each other. I'm kind of not surprised. And to be honest, I don't have any tattoos, and I don't know if I will get them, because it's just a nightmare. You already come in early enough as an actor. Having to cover stuff up on top of that is a nightmare. I don't know how big the tattoo was. I haven't seen it yet from Io and Kaya, but I'm not overly offended. I think I'm glad they had that moment with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to go back to what you were saying, I think it's so interesting that you said you feel like you have more agency now, because I imagine when you were just getting started and you were, you know, a kid in some ways, that people were saying, this is what you need to do. I see you as this, and therefore do that.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you know, you look at someone like Robert Pattinson's career, and I feel very aligned in the sense that, you know, he was kind of pushed into a certain casting category growing up, and I think, you know, his choices since Twilight have been so interesting, and you really do have to take ownership of your career, and it's about playing textured characters, it's about surprising people. I think that will be the next couple of years for me, is really trying to surprise people, get back to my indie roots, do more genre work as well, and you know, it's this whole new group of flavors become available to you when you know, you get to sort of work consistently in a row, and I'm very lucky that I've had a couple of projects that have hit in the last couple of years. So the next couple of years are quite exciting to me.
Yeah. Do you already know what you're doing?
One thing I actually just found out today that I'm doing, which is so different from anything else I've done, which is fun. And I'm very much one of those actors, you know, we talked about Crazy Stupid Love before, but someone like Ryan Gosling, who's able to